Hello everyone, welcome back to Sports Today, and from my behalf, a very happy new year to you all. I wasn't with you guys yesterday, otherwise I would have been wishing you yesterday, but better late than never, I guess. So happy 2023. Hopefully it's a great year for all of you, all of us, and hopefully our wonderful family keeps growing. With that in mind, the beginning of January doesn't just mean the start of a new year. It also means, if you're a football fan, the time where transfers can happen once again, because it's the time for the winter transfer window, which lasts for about a month. Now, this year, normally speaking, January transfer windows don't see a lot of movement, considering the fact that, it's the January transfer window. You'll see bigger transfers happen in the summer. Unfortunately, this time around, the FIFA World Cup happened in December, which meant that a lot of players would have actually bumped their stock up considerably and might very well be in for transfers, or would have at least be scouted by particular clubs for looking at, signings. So obviously, there are a lot of players who've shown in the World Cup, but here in this video, we're going to discuss 10 players who we think can be in line for big transfers if the money is right. Now, that of course being the key part is that if the money is right, because again, as I said, January you don't normally get a lot of big transfers. So if you're going to have to force any club to sell any of these players, you're going to be having to spend crazy money. Will that happen? Well, we don't know for sure. Stranger things have happened in the past. But without further ado, let's check in and see who would be those 10 players who did really well in the FIFA World Cup and could be in line for a move this time around. And bear in mind, there's no rankings here, it's just 10 players we've picked, and we're starting with Alexis McAllister. Now again, if you were watching the World Cup and you remember how well he did for Argentina in the midfield, it'd be easy to understand why exactly he'd be so well coveted. He's very hard working, puts in a lot of the hard yards. He also, more importantly, is someone who can create goals and assists, will put in shifts defensively. He does everything and is in many ways the perfect workhorse midfielder to have in your 11. Now, obviously, he's currently playing for Brighton and Hove Albion, and they did a very smart thing that before the World Cup, they actually gave him a 3-year contract extension, which means that he's currently contracted to the club till 2025. But that is something that can be changed, and Brighton are known to do business, but only if the price is right. However, even if not in January, and believe you me when I said there could very well be clubs lining up for him already, you can be rest assured that there's going to be clubs lining up for him, not just in January, but potentially in the summer as well, if no move is made. So good were his performances for the Argentina side. In fact, if you remember, he started every single one of the 6 matches that Argentina actually won. So it's not just about him being a good luck charm. His industry and drive in midfield really helped them a lot. And the other player, the second player who we're looking at this list, is Sofiane Amrabat. Now, obviously, Morocco was one country that, actually won a lot of hearts en route to their maiden appearance in a FIFA World Cup semi-final. They, of course, became the first African side to make it to the semis, first Arab nation to make it to the semis, and unfortunately, heartbreakingly, they couldn't actually make it to the final or even win the third place playoff, but they can be very proud of how it is that they did. And one of the key reasons why they were so hard to break down was this man Amrabat, who as a defensive midfielder was a wonderful shield for the Moroccan side, very good at the tackles, very good at anticipating situations, and he's not exactly an unknown talent, because if you remember, he was being linked with a move to Tottenham from his current club Fiorentina in the summer as well. But beyond just that, this World Cup would have alerted the wider world to what it is that he can do. So don't really be surprised if you see a lot of clubs going in and making at least an inquiry about him, if not, something more like few substantial bids. The other player, and again is someone who was playing for the Moroccan side, is Azideen Una. Now, if Amrabat was the key defensive midfielder for the Moroccan side, Unahi was the key centre back, and he was someone who in many ways possesses all the traits that modern day centre back should have. He should very well be good with their feet, good in the air, good at anticipation, good at tackles. Unahi has them all, and the best part is he's very young and plays for Angers in the French league, so wouldn't be too expensive to acquire. So wouldn't really be much of a surprise if a lot of clubs went in inquiring for him even in the January transfer window, because unlike a lot of these players, he's not contracted to a massive club, and so could very well actually find himself getting a nice little move to one of Europe's bigger clubs in January itself. Another player who could very well be making a move this time around, someone who Dutch fans would remember very well, Andreas Noppert. Now, Noppert was in fact part of the Dutch team that made it all the way to the quarterfinals, only to be eliminated on penalties by Argentina. And Noppert was someone whose story in many ways was very inspirational. Just 2 seasons back, he was actually playing second division football and was contemplating actually retiring from the game and leaving the game behind, but then ended up getting a few chances. Currently plays for Heerenveen in the Dutch league, and considering the kind of performances he put in, he was very calm, very assured, good with his feet, good shot stopper. He's someone who a lot of top clubs could very well be seeking out. And of course, I know what you're thinking. If you're thinking goalkeepers, there may be a couple more choices there who you could think of, and we're coming to those soon enough. Dominic Levakovich, Croatia's penalty shootout hero, who of course was key to them winning 2 penalty shootouts in this particular World Cup itself. You would remember has been very, very good for them in the past as well, and has been someone who, generally speaking, flies under the radar a little bit when you're talking about players who could actually, be playing for a top club. Levakovic, remember, was the rock behind Croatia having as solid a defense as they did, and as their last line of defense was more often than not someone that opponents found very, very hard to breach. And he's also another player who has been linked to numerous clubs, and it wouldn't be a surprise if you saw him moving to one of the bigger clubs in Europe come the January transfer window, which, as we know, has already opened. But we're still only about halfway through the list. There's still a lot of players we can get to. And another player who could very well be impressing a lot of top players or top clubs is Mehdi Taremi. Now, of course, Taremi is someone who, Chelsea fans would remember very well, considering he scored a spectacular bicycle kick against them in the 2020-21 Champions League that was voted the goal of the season. He's still currently at Porto, and is someone who's a late bloomer. You don't have to really worry about his age. He's 30 years old, but he's someone who's really coming to his own only later on in his career. So he's someone also who is very, very impressive for Iran, and you would actually be banking on him if you were a top club to continue to actually, do what he does best, and that is score goals. His link-up play and, play beyond just his ability to finish, also very, very underrated, and thus it wouldn't be too much of a shock if you saw a lot of names come in for him, swoop in for him. You have seen him being linked to a number of top clubs, and so he did his own chances of a transfer no harm with a very, very good showing in the FIFA World Cup. Another striker who I think impressed a lot of people was, of course, the young French striker Randal Kolo Muani, who of course wasn't really a starter in most of the games. In fact, you remember, but he did have 2 very, very impressive feats whilst coming off the bench. So in the semi-final, you remember, he came on, he scored the fastest substitute goal, or one of the fastest substitute goals in the history of the FIFA World Cup. He came on 12 odd seconds later, ball in the back of the net. In the final, he was very, very key as well for France, because he won them that penalty in, he won them a penalty and it helped France make their comeback. He scored his own penalty in the shootout, although it turned out to be for naught. But Kolo Muani is someone who has impressed a lot of clubs. He's very, very young, is continuing to improve, and also plays for a decent side in the Bundesliga that is known as AajTak Frankfurt. Now, of course, we know that in Bundesligas, a lot of these clubs are open to selling their top talent for the right price. So Kolo Muani is someone who I think a lot of big clubs will be keeping an eye on, because again, the potential is definitely there. And if you can be so good now coming off the bench, imagine just how good it is that he can be as a striker with some more regular game time in one of Europe's top leagues. Another player who, by the way, as a forward impressed a lot was Gonzalo Ramos. Now, of course, everyone would remember Gonzalo Ramos was the player who ended up replacing Cristiano Ronaldo when the latter was dropped from the round of 16 fixture against Switzerland, and Ramos made the most of his chance and then some, because you remember he scored a hat-trick, and he's now already someone who's very, very sought after. He's a very versatile player, can play anywhere across the forward line, the striker on the right, left, wherever it may be. He showed, that his composure, his finishing, his playmaking, all of it is there. Yes, he's still very young, but perhaps crucially also plays for a club like Benfica, who we also know are prone to selling their right talent for the right prices. In fact, Benfica could very well be one of those clubs who makes a lot of money from the World Cup, because again, he's not the only star, but I think he's someone who really sprung up in the radar of many, because before that, you had to have been a die-hard follower of the Portuguese league to know exactly who Gonzalo Ramos was. Now, well, everyone knows him, and it wouldn't be a shock if you saw a big club come in there, swoop in, and get him among their ranks. Now, we're coming towards the end of the list, but there's another few notable players who've done their chances no harm. Another one of them being the USA's right back Sergino Dest. Now, Dest finds himself in a very interesting situation. He's currently actually a Barcelona player, but was loaned out to AC Milan this year, having not really impressed coach Xavi. But despite the fact that he may not be the kind of player that Xavi wants, he's someone who's rated very highly with a lot of potential. And despite the fact that even his AC Milan stint has been good and not great, there is every chance that he could be getting a big move based on how well it is he did during the World Cup for USA, where he showed exactly the kind of traits that make him such a good player in his position. Very, very fast. He's good at getting forward, good at crosses, good at getting into attacking positions, industrious, and will track back whenever it is necessary. So he too is one of those players who I think could have boosted his chances of actually, getting a transfer away from Barcelona, where despite the fact that they actually fought really hard to sign him, he's currently not wanted. But that's just the nature of how it works with big clubs sometimes, especially when there's a managerial change. And last but not least is, of course, this man from Ghana, Mohamed Kudus. Now again, Kudus is someone who wasn't exactly flying below the radar. He's done very, very well for himself at Ajax, and in fact was linked with multiple moves away this summer itself. However, none of them materialized. He chose to stay at Ajax, and he's impressed with them both in the Eredivisie and in the Champions League. Continue that good form for Ghana as well. Now, Ghana were, of course, unfortunate that they didn't make it out of the group stages, but missed out by a whisker. And Kudus was definitely one of those players who everyone looked at and said, yeah, he should be playing for a much bigger club than he is already. And that's no disrespect to Ajax, but Ajax are a club that do end up selling a lot of their top talent to bigger clubs. Kudus could very well be those who a lot of clubs will be keeping a tab on in January, and may even make a cheeky bid or two to actually get him in early rather than wait for the summer, when I'm expecting there'll be a bidding war for this guy. But that's just how I feel, and these are my players who I think will be demanding huge transfer fees based on their performances in the World Cup. But enough about how I feel. What do you guys think? Well, you can let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and tap that bell icon so you know when it is we're going live or uploading a new video for you guys. Then you can also go ahead and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And last but not least, don't forget to download the SportsTech app. 2023 is going to be a huge year for sport. There's going to be a lot of things going on, and believe you me when I say you want to be subbed into SportsTech, Sports, and Sports Today to get you all of the best stuff from the world of sport. That being said, I'm Shane Dyer signing off for now. I hope to see you with us through the day, but for now, goodbye.